everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a book review on Bright Young Woman. I originally gave this book a 5 out of 5, but ended up changing it to a 4 out of 5. I also read this with a book club online, so I will be sharing some of their thoughts as well. But my original opinion right off of finishing this. Great story, didn't say the killer's name and focused on the victims, which was super interesting and different. So it's based off of Ted Bundy's victims, but fictionalized. Goes between two characters who had experiences and one person who they have in common, but years different. Two different stories from different years, and there's one person who connects them. I said I did not want to put it down, just keep reading. It started off slow, the first couple pages, and then it took off, and I did not want to put it down. So at first I did not realize it was based off of Ted Bundy's victims. So when someone pointed that out, I was like, okay, so all the thoughts I was thinking weren't true. So now we'll share the thoughts from the book club. I know a lot of people rated it like 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 5 out of 5. So there was a wide range of people in their ratings here. When it was asked if everyone knew it was inspired by Ted Bundy's victims, I said I didn't until someone mentioned it, and I was confused at first. Maybe thinking Tina, which is the person they had in common, was a bad person because she was connected to Ruth and Pamela. Once I learned, I was like, oh, I was fishing for something unnecessary. And then a lot of people didn't know, and then some people did. And then someone asked what people who gave 4+ stars thought of it and why they loved it, and I said, I loved it because I couldn't put it down. Not saying that there were parts that weren't confusing or awkward, but I enjoyed the different timelines and the point of views. How Ruth's story was more of what happened to her and led her to where she was, and Pamela was more of her story of experiencing what happened to her friends. I am also trying to say, not spoil anything, but there may be spoilers. It was said that I'm glad you mentioned that you were confused at times because same. Sometimes the author would say things and I felt left out, like I didn't have the information needed in order to understand. So there were points throughout that I was like, wait, I didn't catch that. Or a character was brought up 2 chapters before and then mentioned 4 chapters later. So it took a while to make those connections, almost like there was added words there. Someone said, I almost wonder if because I watched and read so many things about Ted Bundy and know the story of him and his victims so well that I anticipated to learn something new from this book and didn't. Which I guess makes sense because it is fiction after all. Maybe I was just expecting too much after it. I do think that Ruth's point of view was maybe not necessarily relevant, but it was important because it humanized the victims in a way we should, but always fail to do so. Bundy was so sensationalized, everyone forgot about the woman he murdered. Which I do agree with. I did enjoy that they never said the killer's name. It was the only names mentioned were the victims, which I thought was really important, like I said earlier, and different, to focus only on the victims and not give light to the serial killer. Someone said, yes, it's almost in a way humanizing the victims who were never humanized. And that Ruth's point of view wasn't necessarily to add, but it was supposed to humanize her and show the perspective of who she was and exactly what was lost when she was killed. That was a spoiler. But, I mean, you figured that out pretty early on reading. And I said, I definitely thought it was to add maybe to who Tina was and what part she played. I was so confused on who Tina was until it was for Ruth's point of view. It added a layer to Tina and what she was trying to accomplish. It felt like towards the end of some of the chapters just started to feel a little unnecessary. Like talking about things not even relevant to the plot. I said, I agree with this, almost to make the book longer and add some fluff. Some people said the book was way longer than it needed to be, and that's probably why they disliked it so much. It was slow and it would speed up a lot, would happen, and then there would be chapters and chapters and chapters of nothingness. I agree with that. Some chapters were not necessary, but I think that also adds to the part where people were getting confused and lost because the connection took chapters and chapters to be made. when it could have been made way quicker and faster. And I brought up the fact that I really did suspect Tina for a while, though, until I realized that wasn't the point of the book. I was like, ooh, Tina's suspicious. And then a lot of people agreed with me. They said they built suspense up around her for nothing, had me thinking she was going to be in on one of the murders or something. And then someone said, I kept wondering when we were going to find out something horrible about Tina. And then she was just a lesbian. And someone else said, yeah, it was disappointing that was what made her so mysterious and suspicious. I was expecting something more juicy. Then I had the realization that it was a missed opportunity maybe by the author, and she should have set it up in a way. We should have heard Tina's story of her time with Ruth when she met Pamela, rather than like way later on. Because when Tina and Pamela met, she was just like, I think I know who the murderer is, and showed her a picture. She didn't explain why she thought so, or didn't explain her story or what happened to Ruth. It took the whole book to go from Ruth's point of view to Pamela's, and I think it goes back to the original point that it was to make them more humanized. And apparently something I missed was that there are parts of the book that are fictionalized, and then some were taken from the real crimes. And I didn't know that, but someone did also add that some victims' names were accurate and some were made up, and that they didn't enjoy that part of it. And I had no idea any of it was accurate. I thought it was just a fictionalized tale of the crimes that happened. But I'm kind of wondering, why would you make some parts fictionalized and then use stuff from real life as well? Someone said they felt like the characters felt so distant and didn't feel connected with them. People said, I feel like the character building was taken away by focusing more on the details of the case. Which was very true. The case was overpowered and how no one was helping them like actually bring justice, and just was like, we'll figure it out when we figure it out. I've had a few mishaps now while recording, but to go back to where I was, I said I felt maybe Pamela was the only one who that you could have actually connected with, because it was all based on her fighting for her friends and getting justice. Someone said, especially towards the end with the heavy legality of it all, the character development of Pamela kind of stopped for me. Which I do agree, because it went into all the superficial. And I added that there were so many random things that were just supposed to make sense, and someone said it just felt incomplete in a lot of ways. A couple people had to reread because they felt stupid trying to understand the relevance of it all, and it kind of took away from the book itself. One of the characters that was kind of harder to figure out was Ruth had a situation with her brother's fiance or wife. So that was like another point, and I said it took me a few minutes to figure out that the mention of the character was the same a couple chapters later. And I think that is all I have for you on the review of Bright Young Woman. That was feedback from me as well as some people from my book club. As always, if there's anything you want me to read and review, please let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching!